Danny, absolute thrill to be interviewing you. I can't tell you how excited I am about this interview.
So if it's worth it.
I guess we should structure. It's on Monday, the 13th of August 2012. We're in Dalesford, and it's my pleasure as Warren Maloney to interview Danny Spooner. Tell me where you were born and...
I was born in the East End of London.
Right. Late 30s, was it?
I wish it was. 1936, yeah. In a street called Cable Street, which went down onto what was then known as the Ratcliffe Highway, which was a street that ran right down the length of the Pool of London, and where people like Jack the Ripper used to operate. Not in my day.
Sort of Whitechapel type area?
A bit further east,
Right.
just a little bit further east, but within walking distance of Whitechapel.
What did your father and mother do?
My mum basically looked after my father, who was crippled. He had been a seaman when he was a young man on tramp steamers. They were ships that used to go from one port with a cargo, where they would unload it, they would get another cargo for another port, and in that way basically just went round and around the world, which was a nice way to travel. He did that for a while he was young, and when he came back from that, he got involved working for BICC Calendars, which was a big cable company, British Insulated Cables I think it was, and he used to go out on shutdowns, on pylon shutdowns, when the electricity went down or something happened. They used to go out all hours of day and night and basically get the electricity back on again. And during one of those occasions, he fell over and sprained his ankle. And the outcome of it was he ended up with arthritis, which put him in a wheelchair.
At an early age?
Well, yeah, because he was dead, he was 48. And he was in a wheelchair for most of my life. I can just remember him walking. We used to, it was really funny, well it wasn't funny. He still went to work while he could barely walk, but what he had a fixed wheel bike, and he used to get his bike, and my mum used to push him along the road, and once he got going, of course, just the weight of his feet kept him going. And he had a mate at the other end who'd wait for him, catch him when he got there, so he didn't fall off. And the same thing when he come home, Mum knew what time he was coming home, and she'd be out there, sort of stop the bike as it went past the house. But I can just remember that happening, and I can just barely remember him being able to walk. I used to go with him to the pictures, which was not far from where we were, and we used to have to get on a trolley bus, and it used to frighten the bleeding life out of me because they were electric at that time, because they take off really quick. And Dad really, not only could he not walk, but he had lost his strength, like he couldn't hold on. And he used to say, go on, son, you get on, sit down. No, and he used to get on the bus and grab hold of the pole and pull himself on, but often these blokes would just start off, you know. And I often had thoughts of him flying out the back, you know. Never happened, but then he ended up in a wheelchair, which we used to push, and so we ended up pushing him to the picture.
Was he a hero to you?
He was he was an hero to me, certainly. He was really interesting bloke because he never ever complained. He was in a lot of pain. He was arthritis right through him. And they tried every single thing that was possible to try on him. And he was a really nice bloke, a terrific bloke. And he never complained, you know. He was in pain all the time. Walked across the floor, it would hurt him. And it's really funny because in the last year or so, I'm starting to get a little bit of arthritis in my hands. And I think to myself, Christ, I'm complaining, you know, about these hands which are hurting me. He had it all over him, all through it. But he was a terrific bloke.
How many children in the family?
3.
And where did you come?
I was the eldest. And 2 younger brothers.
So did you sort of have to adopt the father role in many ways?
Pretty well. Yeah.
And that's why at the age of 13, I think you went to work.
Yeah.
Your mum, what was she like?
She was a brilliant, absolutely brilliant manager. She, we were dirt poor, obviously, but we never went without food. I know she went without food, like during the war, when the rationing and that sort of stuff was on. We never went without food. She always managed to make something happen. And often, you know, she wouldn't have anything, and we'd say, well, where's yours? And she'd say, oh, I had mine earlier, you know, and it wasn't till afterwards, many years afterwards, that we found out that there wasn't an earlier for her, you know. And Dad, the same, he often went without. But we never went without food. And our clothes were always clean, and she was knitted up things, and, you know, sort of, well, the clothes went from me to Terry to Mick, and then sort of she got, by the time I got down there, they were pretty ribby, so she'd knit them up to something else. And I remember we always used to think, you know, wouldn't it be nice to have one of them nice jumpers out of Woolworths, you know, that was all stitched on a machine, you know, because ours was big and bulky and everything. We probably had much better clothes if the truth was known.
Yeah.
But they weren't fashionable, you know. Sure. But they were great. They were lovely people, and
So you were 4 to about 9 during the Second World War. Do you have many memories of?
Yeah, lots of them.
All the time in London?
Yeah.
So
at the end of the war, I was sent up to Birmingham. I'll tell you about it afterwards if you like. Sort of give my mum a break. But yeah, right through the war, we got Mr. Hitler's Luftwaffe asked us to move along the road a couple of times.
right. So the house got bombed? Or?
Twice, yeah, we got bombed out twice. Moved in with somebody else.
What were you? Do you remember any of your feelings of that?
Oh, look, I've seen bits of bodies all over the place and stuff like that, but I wasn't old enough to really understand. I mean, the kids, me and my mates and stuff like that, and we'd go out and throw stones at the aeroplanes and sort of fire catapults at them and that sort of thing, you know. It was all a bit of a game, and I'm sure we didn't really understand the truth of what was going on around us. And like we would go and get bits of like planes that get shot down and stuff, and bits would fall in the bomb sites or something like that. You go ratting around and find a bit of a German aeroplane or one of ours, and it was all part of the growing up as a kid. We didn't realise really what was happening. It was pretty awful.
Because being near the docks and near the whole thing, you were the target.
We got hammered, yeah, absolutely hammered. Yeah. But the other side of that was that all our family, my aunts, uncles, grandmas, dad, mum, all sang, played music. And until it got to the stage where we couldn't go down the shelter because we couldn't get him down there quick enough. And he ended up having what was called a Morrison shelter in the house, which was like, it was essentially a bed that was metal supports and a metal roof, like steel, and a cage around the sides of the glass. And we'd all get in there, and Dad was a great storyteller. And all the kids would pile in there, and he'd start telling us stories, he'd make them up. And, but prior to that, when we used to go down the shelter, you know, everybody was singing. They had a piano down there, and my Uncle Johnny, he was a bit of a thespian, and he'd come down, he'd always put on a little tune and stuff like this, so it was always singing, you know. And,
do you remember any of those songs from the show?
Oh yeah, all the old musical songs and stuff like that from that time, you know, and all the wartime songs, you know, that soldiers used to sing. They were all sung down the shelters. Great.
Were you a bit of a street larrikin? Were you a leader of any little push or gang? Or?
Yeah, I was a bit.
Tell me about that.
Well, my mum really started it. She was. Well, it was funny. I was quite young, and I was out in the street, and a couple of kids. Well, one kid in particular got hold of me and gave me a bit of a post. I think I was about 6 or 7. And I went in crying. "Whoa." Knocked him about. Mum said, "Go out and sort him out." "Hey, bigger of me." "Go out and sort him out, or I'll give you one," you know. So I went out and got another pasting, and so she sent me back again until I did him off. And unfortunately, I suppose to some extent, when I was young, I used to resort far too often to, you know, somebody said something to me, they've got a right hander, and that was it. But the other, it's really funny because there's, you know, two sides to all stories. Like, I was boxing, my dad used to be a fighter, amateur boxer, and he wanted me to do the same thing, and Mum was dead against it. She always said it was because of boxing that he was crippled, which he wasn't, but she always said it was. And so I got into boxing and boxed at the Repton Club and places like that, and I used to box at the Jewish Club too, which was good, good facilities and all the rest of it, and I ended up doing pretty well and got the ABAs, and we just got television, and they had, my dad used to love watching the boxing, and they had the British ABAs on. And he said, "Oh no," he said, "Nah, turn it off." And Mum said, "Come on, you always watch bloody boxing." No, I'm not, because he knew I was on it.
Oh, right.
Well, did I get a serve off my mum? I thought I told you not to get playing up boxing. But the biggest bashing I ever got was off her.
Yeah.
Because I always reckoned that, like, 'cause she had 3 sons, and they were pretty wild times, you know, kids. Her idea was you were out in the street, you know. "What you do? You're not well, boy, what's the matter with you?" "Well, no, I'm all right." "Well, please get outside, get some fresh air. You know, the East End of London, fog, shit, you don't get fresh air, you got to be joking." Anyway, but get out the house, you know. And so she had to sort of not only feed us, look after us and all that sort of stuff, she had discipline us as well, and she could, you know. And I remember, I always reckoned that when she clouded us, that she turned her engagement ring round. And she hit me this day on the ear roll, and it really hurt. And I said, "That's it. That's the last time you hit me. Put your hands up and fight properly." And she looked at me, and my dad said, "Go on, son." And because what I didn't know, she'd been to all these fights. She came across, bang, got a flat nose, busted ear hole, and I ran up the stairs and locked myself in the toilet and said, "I ain't coming out till you stop hitting me."
How old do you think you were at that stage?
I was about 8, I think.
Yeah.
But I knew it all, didn't I? So.
Tell me about London at that moment, that end of the war. My guess is it still was the coal fires, it was still sooty, it was fairly ghastly and dank.
Blow your nose.
Yeah.
And you had a handful of coal dust, you know. You go out, well, they used to, the buses and things like this, during the smogs, they used to have a bloke walking in front with a light. So you could actually walk faster than the bus service because there was a bloke walking in front of it, because the bus driver couldn't see this far. You know,
and that was largely driven by the coal and...
Coal gas, yeah. Coal fires, you know.
Yeah.
And everything, smoke, clutter, and all of that sort of stuff.
And down the end of your street was the river, basically.
Close to it, yeah. It was very weird. By the time we got to the wartime, we were living in a place called Barking, and we'd moved out a bit further down. Well, we had been moved by Mr. Hitler, and down the bottom end, because we, in a sense, we're in an equally bad spot because we were on the main road to the docks. The end of our street was the Masters Matchbox factory. The opposite side of the street to the houses was a rubber factory. Right. That had just great piles of tyres and stuff like this, you know. So, and at the end of the street there was a bleeding great gas on there, you know. And very famous story. A bloke and a big wall round it was gasworks, and they dropped what they called cluster bomb, which was like incendiary bombs. and they burnt when they landed. They sort of, I don't know what it was that was in there, but they started to fester and they burned through metal, and they dropped it on top of this gas on there. And this bloke ran the length of our street, jumped up, pulled himself up over the top of this fence, brick wall, ran across the bloody field, up the top of this gas on there, and kicked all the incendiaries off the top.
Incredible.
They gave him a medal and all the
I
rest of
think
it.
you're entitled.
But if he hadn't done it, but it would have been gone, you know, because it was full up with
Yeah.
gas. You know. Just amazing stories.
Well, people
Lots
can-
of stories like that. Been wonderful time for, I mean, shouldn't say it's a wonderful time, it wasn't. But for people being together, helping each other, sort of thing people forever rabbiting on about in this day and age, about community and all that, that was what it was. And one of the things, I mean, you hate about Margaret Thatcher was the fact that she said what we need is another war because we've never had such a community. No, we don't. We don't need another war. We should be able to have community attitudes without that, you know. But it was really
But
interesting.
I guess a lot of those values and experiences certainly formed a whole lot of what we're going to talk about later in the music and your love of particular angles in the music.
Yeah, very much so, because, you know, when I fought, just at the end of the war, I was sent up to Birmingham, or just outside Birmingham, a place called Cradley.
With other children?
No, on my own. But what happened was we'd been bombed out and we'd gone into another house with a bloke called Mr. Kane, and he had two daughters, older than us. And the first house we got bombed out into was Mrs. McCall's house. She was a Scots lady, and she lived with a bloke called Charlie McDougall, and they both knew lots. She knew loads of Scots songs, and I learned loads of Scots songs from her. And I learned a great interest in Burns from him because he knew all Burns poetry. Mr. Kane was a guard on the goods trains that ran between London and Birmingham, Handsworth. And at Handsworth, he became friends with a lady who was a crane driver, and many of the women were doing men's jobs. And Auntie Lily, or we called her Auntie Lily anyway, she was driving a crane at Handsworth Station, and she and her husband had no kids. And they used to come down to London and stay with Mr. Kane on weekend because they used to get free travel and all that. And one day they, I think, said to my mum and dad, well, look, Mum's got a real handful here to look after. I mean, I was a handful on my own. And two other younger sons. Why don't you send Danny out with us for a year? You can go to school up there and this, that and the other thing. And give you a break, you know, just take one away. They were quite happy about that, it was good. And I had the best time, it was just lovely.
Was that the first time you've been out of East London?
Yeah.
Huge moment.
Stuck me on a train with a guard van full of pigeons in little bags, in little baskets, with a big Danny Spooner Snow Hill station on me ticket, on my coat. And the guard put me off at Snow Hill.
Were you scared?
Auntie Lily. No, because I knew someone was going to meet me. I think if I was just going and I didn't know where I was going, might have been a bit different. I didn't scare easy, but the fact that I knew where I was going, and Aunt Lily and
So what were your memories of those first experiences of Birmingham?
Oh, brilliant! I loved it because they had no kids, so I was like God's gift to them, if you like. And they lived with their with his mother and father, and so there was Auntie Amy, Pop, Uncle and Aunt Lily and me. And they thought well of me, they were just so nice, and they really treated me well. And the old man had been in the artillery in the First World War, and he was a chain maker, and the chain makers are unbelievable, and they had the chain works in the house, sort of thing. The back of the house was sort of knocked out, there was a forge and all this, and the chain used to come and he'd make the chain. And I used to love it. If there were two things I wanted to do when I was a kid, either go to sea or be a blacksmith. And it was just a joy watching these people make stuff with metal. I just loved it. And they treated me really, really well. They were great Aston Villa supporters, so we would go to see Aston Villa play whenever they were at home, and he knew a couple of the players, so I got to meet them. And so my interest in football was stimulated, of course, that sort of stuff. And a lot of interesting mates. I had to fight a bit because, you know, I was a bit of a ring-in. You had to sort of make a space for yourself. You know?
Sure.
Yeah, just what boys do. And yeah, and I had some lovely mates, and it was a really interesting place because although it was heavily industrial, there were lots of places like in the country, and we used to every Sunday we would go for a walk out into the country. A lot of walking. No, didn't have a car, nothing like that. And we would do long walks and stuff like that. Auntie Lily was in the church as well. None of the others were, but she used to sing in the choir, so she got my ear out and dragged me down here singing the choir in
Okay.
which I quite enjoyed. You know, it was good fun. But I really had a good time. I was very well
So
looked
where did the priorities starting to emerge? School, singing, work in the foundry at the back. Where was all that starting to come into your mind as a priority?
Well, in the first place, I heard, like, firstly my grandparents and all my aunts and uncles and everybody was singing, and my grandparents sang a lot of traditional songs. My dad's mother was Irish, and my mum's mum was very much Cockney traveller, itinerant worker, in the fields and that. She knew lots of English rural songs, and so that's what the sorts of songs they sang. People like my Auntie Jess sang working class musical songs, you know. Dad was a great, when he could, was a really good piano player, played particularly jazz and that sort of stuff, and he could imitate any piano player. He'd play like Fats Waller or Charlie Coombs or any of these people. And so that was all firing in. And then when I went to Birmingham, there was just round the corner from where we lived in Woodland Avenue. I was in a place called Quarry Bank, which was just out of Birmingham. It was what they called the Black Country, which was the chain making area and all that sort of stuff. And there was an old man round the corner from us called Mr. Dunn, and I remember every night I used to have to walk up to the pub with a jug and get a pint and a half of mild and bitter for pop, and old Mr. Dunn would, where you went, there was a women's snug, and there was a little peephole, and you used to put your jug up there, so they knew what you were coming for. And I could hear this man singing. I could always hear this man singing. He was in the pub, and he was singing. He's singing really interesting songs. And because Uncle Ern would never go near a pub, he was very anti the pub. He never drank at all, whereas the old man drank, and he had no problem. But Uncle Ern was a little bit precious. I think he saw himself as being a bit upwardly mobile because he was a fitter and turner rather than a labourer, you know. And wore a suit to go to work in. Put his overalls on when he got there. So he was not into, you know, the pub or anything, but I used to love, and I'd take ages to go and get his pint. One day, Pop said to me, "Jesus, you're an old top." What was it? I said, "There was a man up there singing, and he was singing ever such interesting songs." And old Pop said, "I'll bet that was George Dunn." And I said, "I don't know, it was." I said, "I could hear him. And because Pop couldn't walk by this stage, he was quite old, and well, he'd been wounded in the war, in the First War. And so there's no way he could walk that far. So he said to Uncle Ern, he said, "I'm going to take him up to the pub." Uncle Ern didn't want to do that. He said, "I'm going to take him up to the pub, see if it's Georgie Dunn." And he took me up to the pub and went in the bar, and there was this old man with the flat hat, scarf, you know, sitting up in the corner, and he was singing sort of poaching songs and all these sort of working songs about metal workers. And it was great. I was cross-eyed with listening to it, you know. And so that was my introduction to it. And then when I went to work when I first went to work, the first skipper I was with on the sailing barge was a bloke called Bob Roberts, and
This was when you were about 13.
yeah, I was 13, went 13 and a bit,
Yeah.
and
Or 12 and a bit.
well, no, I was 13 and a bit, but I don't know if you've probably heard the story, but I might tell you. I went down the docks because I sort of felt that, you know, things was hard for my mum, and I thought, well, if I went to work, I could be a bit more money coming in. And so I thought, well, I'll go down the docks and see if there's anything I can get on a boat or something. And there were all the sailing barges all lined up waiting to go out the lock of the KG5. And I went on one of them and I said, do you need a deck boy? You know, so he said, no, I don't. He said, but actually, he said, fell down there on the Cambria once. And I said, oh, great, good. So I jumped off, but he said, he shouted out, but you've got to be 15. So I aged a year and a half in about 30 metres. And I went on with Bob and he said, I'll give you a trial. I'll give you a month's trial. He gave me a month's trial. And he said, all right, he said, I'll take you on. I'll go see your father. And
So 15 was the legal age, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you knew that you were under. What sort of money?
Oh, I think I'm about 18 probably,
Ooh.
which was good money. He said, anyway, but the more important thing was that he said, I'm going to go and see your father and tell him I'll take you on and I'll see if I can get you apprenticed when you're old enough. And by the way, I know you ain't 15. But the good thing about him was that he had a welter of song. Don't matter what we did, don't matter what we said. He made me join 3 libraries. I had to read the book and I had to tell him the tale, as he should tell me the tale. And no matter what I read, he'd come up with songs about it. And he'd give me this long story about it. This was about so-and-so, and it was what that book was about, and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, he's a lion. I was sobbed, you know, he's making this up as he's going along. And he told one story, which was the cruncher, about a bloke called Bembo, and because I'd done a lot of reading by this stage, and he said that he always used to say, this song's as old as Jesus Christ, and he said there's this bloke, he was just an ordinary sailor, and he was so good that they made him an admiral in the British Navy. And as soon as he said that, I thought, that's crap, because ordinary blokes didn't get to be admirals in the British Navy. So I thought, I'll check him out. So, Admiral Bembo. So we were in London and we were near Greenwich, so I went to Greenwich College and went in there and his toffee-nosed bastard came and said, yes sir, what can I said, I'm looking for something on an admiral called Bembo. Yes sir, Sir John Bembo, certainly sir. And he went off and he brought his book back. Now, the song that Bob sang had Bembo with 3 ships engaged in a squadron of 10 ships of the French, during which time he got both legs shot off. He stood in the barrel of brandy, conducted the battle, beat the French and all the rest of it, and died.
Justifiably.
And that was the story I got. This is why it's all a load of crap, you know. Anyway, the story, in fact, was that Bembo, his father had been an army officer and had come on bad times, and Bembo had gone into the merchant service, and this is in the late 1600s. And he became a captain of a ship, and while he was in the Mediterranean, he engaged 10 Arab dhows, and he sank them all, cut the heads off the captains, stuck them in a barrel of brandy and sent them to Charles of Spain. Thought it was a joke. And the story goes that because all the royal are related, so Charles wrote to Charles of England and said, you're a pretty handy boy there, you'll make him an admiral, which in fact he did. and he became an Admiral of the Blue and had a squadron of ships in the West Indies, squadron of 10 ships in the West Indies. And Ducasse, the French admiral, came into the area and Benbow put to sea with his ships. Ducasse had a squadron. And his senior captains refused to come into battle order because they didn't like him because he was not an officer and a gentleman. And they were hoping he was going to get the shit kicked out of him. And so they held back. He fired shots across their bows and all this sort of stuff. And, but by that time he was in the middle of the French. He did lose one leg to chain shot, which is they cut a cannonball in half and put a chain between them. And the idea was to shoot at the masts, try and bring the mast down. They also used it for when they raked a ship, that they ran across the stern of a ship and they let a broadside go down as they went by. And that just was grape shot, old bits of tin and iron, whatever. Murderous. Anyway, he survived the battle, lost a leg, of course, lived long enough to see Kirby and Wade court-martialed, and died, and he's buried at Kingston. Not seen his grave. So, for the first time, I realised that Bob's songs are not lies. They were ordinary people's interpretation of history. And it was for the first time that I realised that there was a history separate to that which goes into history books. And that's the ordinary songs of ordinary people. And from then on, I just, whenever he opened his mouth, I'd sort of put my computer on, you know. And I learned so many
Do you think
songs.
Bob was giving you 2 apprenticeships at the same time?
He was giving me a dozen of them, I think. He was a lovely man.
That he was basically trying, you were going to be the heir apparent in
yeah,
the stories
I
and the
got
songs?
that. I got that. I get that now. I think I understand that now. I didn't at the time.
Mm.
I was just so bloody interested to listen to this stuff. I could have listened to him all day.
So where were you at this stage? In
I'm
your
working
priorities,
with him about 14, and I'm...
did you think that I'm going to be a lighterman or I'm going to be a singer?
No way I would ever be a singer. I was East End of London boy. You're a working class kid. You're going to work all your life. I mean, I still do.
Mm.
You know, that's about the strength of it. You know, it's sort of. I never sang for a living full time ever. I always worked as a teacher and lecturer.
Even though you had members of your family who were somewhat in the stage.
Uncle Johnny was on the stage, but he also was a printer.
Right.
He was a man. He was in print union to the day he died.
Yeah.
He did that as a bit of bunts on the side. You know?
So tell me about the Danny in that mid-teenage period. What was his dreams?
Well, for a while I was really keen to be a fighter. I thought I was good enough, but I got a retina knocked off my eye, and the bloke who was my trainer was a bloke called Al Phillips. He's a really good Jewish fighter, being Empire champion. And as soon as it happened, the doctor said, "Well, you know, we've saved the eye, but I think it'd be a good idea to give up boxing because I don't think we can do it twice." And Al just said, "Right, that's the end of it. I'm finished." So I just, all right, I had an apprenticeship. Bob had arranged for me to be apprenticed to a captain who worked for Dawkins and George Mitchell, and he apprenticed me. And because it was always father-son stuff, and he had a son who went to university, and there was no way he wanted to work for a living, or certainly not that sort of work anyway. And so George was really upset about that because he loved the river, he was devoted to it. And so he was quite happy, and he knew my mum and dad. We all lived in the same street. And he apprenticed me to the Thames as a lineman, Walton and lineman. And as soon as I got the very first job I had, very first work I had, was as deck boy on a tug with George. I was his deck boy. head cook and bottle washer. And from the moment I went on there, I wanted to be on tugs. I didn't particularly want to be a lineman.
So the tugs were the ones that took the big boats in and out of...
No, the tugs that I worked on first were the ones that towed the barges up and down the Thames, into the docks, into that sort of stuff, you know, up and down the river. Deliver them to the wharves and all that sort of stuff. And that was my apprenticeship. I was apprenticed to Voting, or apprenticed to George Mitchell as a waterman and lineman, and I did my time and I became a freeman of the Thames.
About what age?
21.
21.
And during that time, during my apprenticeship, as soon as I got my 2 years licence, I said to Vokins, the company I was working for, I'd rather go on the tugs if I could, so can I go on as a relief mate? And because they had 4 outside tugs, like river tugs, and they had a number of tugs in the docks, little tiny boats that lots of things about. And so they put me on as a relief mate, and I was a relief mate when I was about 17, nearly 18. And then I was mate. As soon as the opportunity came, I went on as a mate. In fact, I was a mate before I got my freedom. And then I got my freedom, and I suppose fortuitously, a couple of blokes died, a couple of blokes retired, a couple of skippers retired, and a third one died. And they made up the mates ahead of me, and then they were going to make up the third mate, this bloke called Arthur Collier. But he didn't want it. He was a bit further down the track. He was in his 60s, and he didn't want that sort of responsibility. So they said, if we make Danny up, will you go with him as a mate? And he said, yeah. And so I got a skipper's seat when I was just on 21. It's great.
Interesting. Tell me what was happening in the rest of Europe. Were you singing in the pubs at that stage?
No, singing at home, singing all.
Singing?
I suppose like most kids, I was in a rock and roll band for a little.
Right. So we're talking about late 1950s?
Yeah. Fronted a rock.
Bill Haley stuff? Or?
All that. Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly. And
what was your big number?
Oh, we used to do a lot of stuff. We did, Chuck Berry was my favourite. Right. I loved him, and Buddy Holly I really loved. I could do most of Chuck Berry's songs, most of Buddy Holly's songs. Didn't ever like Elvis Presley.
And was it a series of bands, or was it...
No, just the one. We stuck together. We were...
Which was called?
Well, the Midnighters, would you believe? Danny Adder. And it's really interesting because I'll see a mate, because I came here and the whole world changed. We talk about that later, I suppose. And I ended up associate professor at Melbourne Uni. And Brian Pryor was our lead guitarist, the smashing bloke. And my brother Terry kept in touch with him because the boys in the band were Terry's age.
Right.
And so they're a couple of years younger than me. And they formed a band at school, and they wanted a singer. And Terry said, I want Danny sing, can we get him? Which is what we did. It was great fun. We actually got an interview with the BBC and all that sort of stuff. And but that was as far as it went. It was the same as football, I played a few times for West Ham, but I could earn more money as a tuckman. Because when you play football, in those days you got £10 a game, £11 if you drew, £12 if you won. They don't walk on the ground now for less than about 20,000.
How many games did you play with West Ham?
I only played a few, 6, 7.
Yeah.
And probably a few more than that. But the band thing was what we did for.
So how long did the band period last?
We played together for quite a while, probably 2-3 years, because there was a local estate and there was various halls around the place, and it was the era of rock and roll. Every hall was full of kids up and about jiving and all the
Were
rest
you
of it.
aware that there was a sound change happening in the north of England?
What, like the style of music was
Yeah.
going on? Oh yeah, that was terribly apparent because my dad had been in the jazz world. He played piano with various bands and stuff like that. And we'd been brought up with jazz, popular music, big band stuff, Glenn Miller and all that during the war as well. And this, well, you know, sort of Bill Haley, I suppose, was the one who started it. An old mob of kids tore bloody places to pieces just to get in there, rip the seats out of the cinemas where they were on, you know, and dancing and all the rest.
So by the time you're 23, 24, you're a skipper on a tug.
Yeah.
You're still basically living in the east of London.
Yeah.
You're playing occasional sport, whatever that involves. You're playing in bands.
Yeah. A band.
A band.
Yeah. And not singing folk song except at home.
No.
You know, around the table at home we still sing.
Were you in a relationship at that stage?
Oh, not really, you know, I had girlfriends and stuff like
But
that.
nothing.
Nothing serious.
So, okay, and the dream at that stage, I get my own tug and I'll be happy.
I'm gonna be a deep sea skipper. I want to be deep
Somewhere
sea
between
salvage.
that 1960 and another 4 or 5 years,
1962.
you came here. So why?
Well, it's a longish story really, but during the war, London got bombed, saying shocking, particularly the docks, and in typical England type fashion, they just assumed that everything would come back the way it was and all the ships. Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Bremen had been flattened as well. What did they do? They said, right, scrap all the crap, start again. So they knocked the docks down, the old systems, built new cranes, gantries, new docks. And the thing that was most important was they negotiated with unions. They ended up with a 24-hour system. The docks worked 24 hours. Ship could go into Bremen, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, you name it, they turn it round in 48 hours. Come into London, it could be there for months. They still had the old equipment that was, you know, dated and wasn't anywhere near up to date. The unions, very strong left-wing unions, very powerful unions, constantly out on strike. And so consequently what happens? The big ships go into Rotterdam or wherever, they put the cargo into little 700-ton ships, which we used to call Dutchmen. No, they were Germans, Dutch, Norwegians. Families lived on them, had a kitchen like that, and a sort of barge-like thing in the front, 750 ton, straight across the channel, up the Thames, bossed right on the wharf. We couldn't do that in London, so the Thames is starting to die. And it was very apparent because we could see it happening around us all the time. And there was an old man called Freddie Graves who'd been in Australia in the 1930s and had gone back to England because his mother was dying, and he was a roadsman on for Vokins, and he was forever saying to the young blokes, you know, you'll go to Australia, this place is finished, you know, there will not be a river here in X number of years, get out of it while you can. And a few of us thought, well, okay, we'll do that. Like the idea was we'll all go together, you know. But of course they all bottled out, didn't they? And I came out in Canberra, and was deck officer in Canberra. And
£10 pop?
No, I came on the ship. I was deck officer, and jumped ship in Sydney, and that's a great story too. I was standing on at Circular Quay, just looking at the ship, looking at the thing, the passenger wharf there, and this bloke came in, a big tall fellow, suit, all the rest of it. I was standing there looking, leaned on it. Bloody lovely, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it's great. And he must have heard the accent. He said, where are you from? I said, London. He said, you've been here long? I said, yeah, about 30 seconds. I just got off that. Oh, where'd you stay? I said, I don't know. I'll go over to the pub and see if they got any room. Come and stay with us. And we got on a Manly ferry. We got on a ferry and we went across to Mossman. And he and his wife owned a 3-storey house on Mossman Point.
The affluent area of affluent.
He was an architect. They were really battlers, you know, they were working really hard, the two of them. He was an architect, so was she, but because they couldn't have the 2 architects in the house, she became an interior designer. And I still talk to him whenever I'm up in Sydney or in Bridge, because they split up. They lived in the upstairs of the thing. Another Pommy mob lived in the middle, and on the bottom was this little tiny flat. It was probably about as big as this area here, with a little bit longer out there, maybe out to about the thing. And I got that, and outside the door was a patio looking over Sydney Harbour, Timber Beach.
And the world opened up.
And it all changed. It really is important. The change was immediate, because I didn't have to be the person I was when I was in England. That made a big difference. I didn't have to be nobody.
I think that's a good moment. We might finish the first interview. We've done it well. Danny, absolutely enthralling every step of the way. I think we'll be doing 4 or 5. But I think the new step in the new country is the time to do it. Well done, Brett. Well done.
So
Thank you.